video is going to talk about how to use Desmos to help us graph a standard form quadratic. Alright, so we're given an equation f of x equals 2x squared plus 4x minus 6. Now just remember that f of x is also the same thing as y, so you don't want to get freaked out by that at all. The first thing we're going to do, if you don't have a graphing calculator, is use Desmos. So I'm going to pop this equation into Desmos, and you don't have to write y equals, but you can if you want to. So y equals 2x squared, okay? Now, if you're looking at what the squared button is, it's going to be kind of hard for me to show you, but if you look on the very top of the keyboard, it's the third one that says a squared. That's the square key. And then plus 4x minus 6, I believe. Let me double check. All right, so this is the quadratic. Now, Desmos does a couple of things which are really nice. It does label our key points for us if we tap on it. So if you tap on the red line, I notice, and you can change the color, by the way, by holding the red over here. You can actually change the color. I can make it purple if I want to. So you can tap on all of the important points, and it will actually label them for It would actually label them for you. So those are some of the key points here. All right, so the first thing it asks us to label is the vertex. Now remember, the vertex is the most lowest or highest point. In this case, we have a lowest point. And the vertex here is at -1, -8. Okay, so we're going to write that here in our vertex log, -1, -8. Now I know I'm identifying some stuff and you're like, why aren't we graphing? Well, let's go ahead and graph then. So because we don't have our graphing calculator, I only just need you to graph whatever points Desmos points to you as important. So one important point is the vertex, -1, -8. So I'm going to plot that point. Another important point is this point here. So anything that they label gray is definitely important. So 0, -6. It's going to be another point. 1, 0. And if you hear something in the background, there's an airplane flying above. And then -3, 0. So I'm going to label all of those, or I'm going to plot all those points down. Now, obviously, a parabola has a mirror image. So if you really wanted to plug in this point here to make it exactly symmetrical, you can. But I'm just going to label what Desmos gives me. So this is what my quadratic looks like. Remember, the vertex is the lowest point. In this case, I'll show you. It is right here, -1, -8. The axis of symmetry. Now, the axis of symmetry is the vertical line that cuts through your parabola in half, right? It's a line that cuts it through exactly in half. Now, it goes through the x-axis. That's why it is x equals, and it's whatever it goes through. It's whatever x value it goes through in the x-axis. So because it cuts through here perfectly, it goes through at -1. Now, the shortcut to this is it's also the same x value as your vertex. So the -1 is going to be the same in your vertex as well. So remember, x equals -1. It's whatever the x value is for your vertex. Okay. The next thing it asks for is roots. Now, roots are also known as x-intercepts. There's 4 words for x-intercepts. X-intercepts, roots, zeros, and solution. So if it's asking for one of those, it's asking for an x-intercept. Now here we have 2 roots because we have 2 x-intercepts. We have one x-intercept at -3, 0, and we have another x-intercept at 1, 0. Remember, an x-intercept is number, comma, 0. So you want to make sure you label that correctly. Number, comma, 0. Okay, so 1, 0, and -3, 0. The next thing it wants us to identify is the y-intercept. Well, that's going to be wherever your graph crosses the y-axis. Okay, well, it crosses the y-axis at this point, and that point is going to be 0, -6. Okay, and if you want to double check, see how on the y-axis it hits at -6. Remember, a y-intercept is 0, comma number. So make sure you write those ordered pairs correctly. Okay, next thing, is it a max or a min? Well, remember, max means that it looks like a hill, like this, means it has a max. And then a min means it's like a trench. So a max means it has a maximum point, and a minimum means it has a minimum point. So in this case, we have a minimum graph. Okay, the next thing is the domain. Remember, domain is all of your x values. Now, because our x values here are infinite, right? This graph will continue to go to the left forever, continue to go to the right forever, so it's infinite. And the way we say infinite in math is by saying all real numbers, ARN, or you can put the fancy R, okay? And then lastly, we have the range. Now remember, range has to do with our y values. With quadratics, they're restricted. So we have a y, and then it's either going to be greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. Well, because this quadratic faces up, it's going to be greater than or equal to. If the quadratic faces down, like this, that would be less than or equal to. So greater than or equal to is when it's facing up. And then it's whatever the y value is for your vertex. So, because that's the lowest point. So that's going to be, we'll use a different color here that we haven't used already. It's going to be a tough one. Purple? No, we've used purple. Let's just use this baby purple. It would be -8. Remember, your y value here is going to be the same y value as here. All right, and that is graphing standard form quadratics using Desmos to help us.